Because
are people calling you to say, hey, I'm gonna, and you're like, yeah, get off the medium that I'm using?
No, they won't be doing that at all.
Or does it block it?
No, unfortunately not.
Oh shit.
No. In fact, if somebody was to call me whilst doing a live stream, it would knock the live stream off.
That's
and then
so
you've got
annoying.
to start again. Yeah, it is annoying.
Right.
It is very annoying. I've had it happen to me before, so don't call me now.
I'm going to call you.
Don't call me now, honestly, it will knock it straight off.
You know when people are stupid? Hey, we're live! Wow, we are live from the workshop.
From the workshop.
On a live stream. We're both wearing flat hats because we're in Rochdale.
Because we're both...
because we're Lancastrian men.
Good Yorkshiremen.
Good Yorkshiremen. Do you know what? I listened to Ratcliffe and McCordy yesterday. Right, so here's the thing. My missus used to like Ratcliffe and McCordy, but she'll only listen to it if I'm not there, because she said, if you're speaking at the same time as them two are speaking, it's massively confusing.
Yes, you can't tell who's talking.
No. And what were they talking about that was something to do with this? I forget. It was good though. Oh no, they had a sort of, the thing to their show was like they were having a go at Yorkshire. And people got upset. And they kept saying, look, we're not having a go at Yorkshire. People kept saying, well, I think it's terrible that you like it.
Yeah, well, that's what we've been waiting for with you.
We love Yorkshire-ish. Not as much as Lancashire. It's a great place. Right, let's put this to bed. Where's your favourite place in Yorkshire? Because I know where my favourite place is.
Hebden Bridge.
Yeah. What? Because it's really close to us?
Yeah.
The place that I like is really far away.
What? Settle?
Scarborough. Because I used to go there on my scooter when I was a mod. It was a long way. I remember going once.
A long time ago.
It was a long time ago. I remember going there once and people said to me, oh, well, how can you talk about motorbikes if you're a mod? Well, Robert Plant from Led Zeppelin was the king of the mods in 1963 around Birmingham, Wolverhampton. By 1967, he was a bare-chested, suede-trousered, shoulder-length haired. What was he? DC was. I am a golden god. He did, didn't he? And he was.
Just because, like me.
Yeah, I moved on. My scooters, I had scooters the same way my mates had, a Fizzy and then a Super Dream or something like that. So I had a 50cc Vespa, then I had a 200cc Vespa, then I bored that out to like 230 whatever, stage 6. Right, so in scooter racing, stage 6 was the top class.
I thought we were talking about 90s cars.
Hold on a second. I'm just explaining why I'm allowed to talk about motorbikes. So, I rang Midland Scooter Centre, a guy called Dave Webster, and said, I want your engine in my bike. And he went, in my scooter. We call them bikes, right? I want your engine in my bike. And he went, for racing? And I went, no, for road use. And he went, no, it won't work. And I said, I don't care. I want it. And so instead of having like literally 10 or 11 horsepower, which a 200cc Lambretta would have, it had about 30. Now think about that, because you're going to think, oh, has it only got 30 horsepower? Well, it's 3 times as much as it had as standard. So it was absolutely mental, off the charts crazy. Anyway,
indeed.
Anyway, I then rode my pal, Jeremy Howlett, who was the top scooter boy in the country. I rode his Yamaha FSR1000 X-Up. He had one of the very first ones in the country with 145 brake horsepower. And there was no going back. There was no going back to scooters. I've still got 2 scooters, but there was no going back after I'd gone from 10 to 30 horsepower to 145 horsepower. And I went through the whole thing of getting in trouble with all that horsepower, like being banned for 6 months while I was a Top Gear presenter. Yeah, who else has done that? Go on, other Top Gear presenters. First mention of Top Gear, Paul. How many other people have been banned while... Brendan Coogan got sacked for getting a driving ban. Do you remember?
Nope.
Steve Coogan's brother. Are you going to say something dull to introduce what we're doing? I thought we were just talking.
No, I am going to introduce the fact that this is a live stream, the first Steve Berry's Big in the 90s live stream, featuring me, of course.
Are you going to tell them why?
Yeah.
Storm Burt.
Yeah. Well, actually, many of them know because I did a video on it. It had your face on it.
I find
Did you see
this. I find this letting the light in on magic disturbing.
What magic?
What happens now in the world of media is that everything that you do gets broadcast, whereas I'm from a culture where you did this thing called editing, where you'd go, "How was that? Shall we do it again?" And they'd go, "Yeah, do it. Let's do it again." We do it again. And the one that wasn't very good, you'd never see that. But now I'm in a world where Paul does one take, everything's one take, and it don't really matter whether it's any good or not. It still gets put out.
But why is that?
Like this.
Why is that? Well, this is different.
I'm willing to accept that unlike a lot of men my age who are whining about that Jaguar advert, which is the number of people that seem threatened by that advert. Guess what, mate? All of those people who may be sort of pansexual, bisexual, homosexual, whatever, none of them want to shag you. You're old and fat. Bill, Graham, getting all upset and on the collar. Relax, it's nothing to do with you. And by the way, the new cars that are going to come from Jaguar are going to be so expensive. There's no way on God's earth you're going to be. They're doing a Cadillac. If you did your homework and looked how Cadillac have reinvented themselves as a brand with cars that cost $350,000 and aren't a diesel estate car, that's all gone. X-Types, 2-litre X-Types, manual, that's all gone. They're going to build really, really expensive cars and they're going to sell them to rich people who couldn't give a tinker's cuss what you think on the internet. Brian, Derek, relax, mate. Calm down. Have a cup of tea and a biscuit. That's what we do.
Are there any Brian and Dereks here today? Well,
of course there are. It's us. They're the only people that look at us. We're in a shanty shed in Rochdale, drinking tea out of dirty mugs. Of course, it's Graham and Brian and all them. They're the only people that are interested in 90s cars, anyway.
So to get back to the point of why there isn't a video today, it's all Storm Bert's fault.
Storm Bert.
We're blaming.
It was right. I've got to say, when you've got a mate who you do a lot of driving with, sometimes there's a massive disconnect between your driving ability and their driving ability. And for some reason, the Wookiee here thinks I can't drive. Whereas I've got massive experience in really powerful cars. Plus, I've held an International B race license.
Where's this going?
Because every time I go fast in one of our test cars, you start flapping.
I don't like being a passenger.
But I'm perfectly happy with your driving. You're a very good driver.
I don't do stuff like what you do, that's why.
You pay attention to it's other people's cars, so I only go a bit fast. Back in the day, when we used to borrow them off manufacturers.
Back in the day?
I used to absolutely... My nickname was... I found this out. I only found this out.
What, back in the day?
Back in the day, my nickname was Whereabout Wilf. And I heard it because I heard an underling. I was with somebody. There's nothing wrong with underlings, But I was with somebody who's got a fairly big business. And we were chatting away like you do, sort of, bigging ourselves up.
And
I heard somebody in the background going, "Has Wilf brought that car back?" Like this. And I went, "Who's Wilf?" And he said, "You're Wilf." I said, "What do you mean, Wilf?" He said, "You always bring everything back with like frazzled tyres in a slightly second-hand state." He said, "So your nickname's Whereabout Wilf?" And it caught on like wildfire. I do, but...
You can still go on.
Yeah, I've got this one, stick kettle on. What I would say is I'm always respectful of cars that belong to actual people. If it belongs to a giant faceless corporation, let's smoke the tyres and have some fun. If it belongs to an actual person that we know and like, which is you lot, then we treat it with respect, which is what you'll see on the videos that we do. Like my pal Damien, who lent us his beautiful Range Rover. We love that car, didn't we? Was that your favourite car so far that we've done?
No.
Oh, right.
No, my favourite was the Bentley.
The Bentley? Oh, Andy Harrison's Bentley.
I sat in the back of it.
Andy might be watching this, but the problem for Andy is he's not got time to do anything because, and this is, I think I'm going to make quite an interesting point here, Paul. Andy, my pal, Ace, Hello, mate, if you're watching. He won't be because he's too busy. And the reason he's too busy, do you know why he's too busy, Paul?
Because he's got stuff to do.
Yeah, because he's got a small garage, a small, well-established garage in Shipley, and he's absolutely bombed out. Everybody who's in that game is absolutely bombed out, aren't they?
Yeah.
Because, do you know why? You can't get good people. And in that game of like where any older car can come through the door from Andy specialises in minis, but it could be a Bentley, it could be a Lotus, it could be an MG, it could be a Rover, it could be any old car. Finding the people that could do the work on those cars now, apparently, is super difficult. Well, we know that from trying to get our own cars fixed, don't we?
Yeah, that's why you're doing it yourself.
You either end up doing it yourself or you find mates. And the problem with your mates is they go, yeah, I'll weld your MGTS, Steve. I'll weld it so we can get it through an MOT. How many months have I been waiting for that now? But it's because I know you're busy, mate.
No, it's not. It's because you haven't brought it round. I've been waiting.
Everyone watching this knows
waiting for you.
That if you're having a pint with your mate who's in the old car game and you said to him, can I bring my Jag / Triumph TR7 / Zastava?
Yeah, you at the bottom.
Can I bring it round? They go, yeah, bring it round Monday. Yeah, I'll sort it for you. Months later, you're going, what about my Zastava? What about my Yugo 45 restoration? How's that going? And they go, oh, mate, I've been bombed out. Don't they? And you can't say anything because it's your mate. So
kind of true.
The best thing to do is to have an expert that you don't like, and then you can get on the blower and go, hey, where's my flipping car? Or words to that effect.
Did you see that as well?
Was that a rat that just ran across the back of the camera? It would have been miles better if it had run across behind us and people could have gone, what was that?
Yeah, we just saw this thing just move.
It was an rodent. It might have been a mouse. It wasn't a squirrel.
Could have been a leaf.
A leaf?
Yeah, look. Leaves.
What, a leaf with legs?
Did it have legs?
It had legs. It scuttled. You'll find that leaves aren't able to scuttle. Leaves do that. They go like that. They're designed to do that, aren't they? Look, that's what leaves do. Look, I'll show you. I'll prove it. That's what a leaf does. It does that. It doesn't go like that. which is what the thing.
Leaves and the connection with scuttle is relevant though because they block your scuttle up.
They do block your scuttle up. And at this time of year, shall we do those? Shall we start doing videos? I've noticed our videos, thank you for watching our videos, which we put quite a bit of effort into, as you probably noticed. But what we don't do is, here's 5 90s cars that you've never heard of. Number 1, the Lotus M100 Elan. I hate list videos.
Who is that?
That's that annoying American. I nearly said something terrible. That guy who mispronounces everything.
Oh, I know what you mean.
Designed by Gordon Murray. It was. Stop it!
You don't want to say his name, do you not?
Who?
The guy that mispronounces everything.
They're all the same. There's a million of them. There's a million of them, and it's all clickbait. I'm absolutely sick to death of clickbait.
Clickbait gets people watching.
I don't care. I'm not doing it. Right, here's what you'll never get from us. Clickbait. And I will never, ever ask you to like and subscribe. Because if you like it, you'll tell us. And if you want to subscribe, you'll subscribe. And here's another thing you'll never hear us two saying. Hello and welcome back to the channel. What if somebody's watching for the first time, Paul? How can you welcome them back if they've never watched before? So you're assuming. We're not going to assume. We're going to assume. Right, well, I'll tell you what I'd rather have, mate. Do you know what I'd rather have?
What?
A small, appreciative and knowledgeable crowd of people watching our videos, which looking at the comments is, I think, what we've got. We know we've got a lot of people in the old car game watching our videos instead of 14-year-old children in Poughkeepsie, Idaho, going loads of emojis. You can always gauge the intelligence of your audience by looking at how many emojis they put in the comments. And I think you all know that, don't they?
You're always doing emojis when you're sending me messages.
Yeah, but it's mine are ironic.
All those little love symbols and things. kisses, you know? It's not that ironic, is it?
Isn't it weird how we sometimes get onto the idea that you and I might be having some sort of like extracurricular relationship? And there'd be nothing wrong with that. Can we just say there would be nothing wrong with that, right? But we're not. We're right. Let's. This is a difficult thing to talk about because I'll tell you for why. Here's the other thing we're not going to do with Big in the 90s. We're not going to turn it into a soap opera. You know where these people, they start doing a car thing and then all of a sudden they're going, oh, this is little Johnny and he's got like incurable whatever it is. And like,
right.
Or they bring their parents into it. Like car shows that turn into soap operas and start to become, like, here's the thing. All you people that are interested in Mike Brewer's relationship with whichever spanner twiddler he's currently got on with him.
Spanner twiddler.
Those of you that are more interested in that than the cars, get a life.
It's different things,
seriously,
though, isn't it?
Get a life. It's not soap opera. It's a car show. There are soap operas on the telly. Coronation Street, Hollyoaks, Brookside. I know Brookside's not on anymore. I quite like Brookside.
Brookside went years back, didn't it?
I fancied Patricia. And I met her at a telly shindig. And I was trying to chat her up a bit.
Don't get off the point.
I was trying to chat her up a bit, but I could see Paul Young. Yeah, you know Paul Young from the Q-tips and all, the tall fella. He was chatting up my missus, and I thought, this is some sort of showbiz scandal type thing that would appear in the news of the world. With me going off with Patricia off of Brookside and Paul Young off of like being on top of the pops, going off with my missus. So I threatened Paul Young in a corridor. I only wanted to chat this woman up. My missus was there. I wasn't going to do anything. It's in Bolton. Things like that don't go. They might go on in that London or your Hollywood, but there isn't that sort of partner swapping stuff. I was going to say, there isn't that sort of partner swapping carry on in Bolton. Of course there is. It's always the places where you don't suspect it where that sort of thing goes on, isn't it?
I should ask you a series of interesting questions which you could give short answers to.
It happened again.
What?
That thing that came down went up.
It went up?
Yeah.
Right.
So it's not a leaf. Leaves can't go up unless you've got a leaf blower. Right, there's the thing. Leaf blowers, to blow or not to blow. What do you reckon, Paul?
I think they're pointless. I mean, unless I suppose you get all the leaves in one place, but just blowing things from one place to another, it doesn't get rid of them, does it?
I think they're brilliant for annoying your neighbours.
Or have you got a petrol-powered one?
I would never have one. I think that the people that have them should have them inserted somewhere. You know, if you've got a load of leaves, sweep them up or get a rake. You idle. Honestly, really? You can't be bothered to rake them up. Oh, it's like people who play golf and get a golf cart. Do you know what golf carts are for?
There are a lot of people in here, actually. Lots of names I don't recognise.
Dicking around. Are you going to start reading out people's names?
Well, that's what I normally do, but we're not doing too much of that, are we?
Why would we do that?
I don't know. Well, it's just that...
So you're going to read out the names of people to other people who've never met those people, whereas everybody here knows who me and you are. There's the difference. Everybody out there, thanks for watching. We really appreciate it. We're never going to ask you to like and share or any of that crap, because that's not our style, sir. But, Paul, everybody knows who we are, but they don't know who each other are.
Most of them do, actually. Well, it depends.
Most of them do?
Many of them do.
What is it, some sort of wacky cult? Hey, are we cult leaders? That'd be good, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Like Scientology. Then we could ask people to send us money. Send us money? No, don't send us money.
No, you've got enough of your own, haven't you?
Right, so I had a big mad interview last week.
Oh, you were The Guardian?
With The Guardian.
Yeah.
The chief reporter of The Guardian. 45 minutes we were on the blower.
Is it Vic and Bob?
We do look like Vic and Bob. Right, here's the thing with Vic and Bob. I was a massive fan of Vic and Bob, and now I look back at their stuff and I think, it was hit and miss. And I said this to a friend, and he said, do you know what? Monty Python was exactly the same. Monty Python was like We were like Hale and Pace then. Go and stand behind me a bit. Right, there we are. We are the management, aren't we? Do you remember when they used to do... Hey, I'll tell you what. If Vic and Bob were a bit hit and miss, I'll tell you what Hale and Pace were. Totally unfunny. Absolute garbage. If you go back and watch it, you just think, who gave them a TV show?
Not a lot of stuff does stand the test of time, though, does it not?
Some of Vic and Bob stuff is still very funny. But when you watch it, what's interesting is how sort of... There was quite a bit of pretending to be an ethnicity that you're not, which I don't think I'd do now. I don't think I would. And there was quite a bit of leering at women in a way where you just think, wow, really? I mean,
you wouldn't do that, would you?
Well, Vic used to literally go up to a famous woman and leer at her and make weird noises and rub his thighs. And then she wouldn't really get to speak on the programme. So you thought, oh, so the whole point of her being there was so you could rock up to her and rub your thighs and make weird grunting noises. I don't think that'd work now. And I'm not even sure it was funny then. But, yeah, they've done really well for themselves, haven't they? They've reinvented themselves in a Clarkson-esque manner. Because Vic he paints birds, doesn't he?
Paints birds rather than just leering at them.
Instead of leering at me, he paints them.
Yeah.
And Bob's got his fishing programme with Paul Whitehouse.
Which you like, don't you?
No, I've only seen about 30 seconds of it.
Oh, no, you've been told that you'd like it.
I've been told that I'd like it, and I've been told that me and you are a bit like Bob and Paul when they're doing the fishing show.
I haven't seen it either.
Because I don't watch telly.
I don't watch telly either.
When I see television, it frightens me.
It doesn't frighten me.
The only telly I watch is with my dad, who's elderly, and we watch the Chase, and we watch Tipping Point. That's it.
Tipping Point.
Yeah, the contestants on Tipping Points are absolute numbskulls. I nearly said, can we swear on this? I don't want to because it makes it... Some people might be offended, and I don't want to offend. There's no need to swear. You can just say they're numbskulls. Tipping Point has got some really stupid people on. But, of course, it's deliberate.
Yeah, it's very difficult to bleep out your swearing on a live stream.
Oh, is it?
Oh,
it's deliberate because my mate James, who used to work on Top Gear, second mention of Top Gear.
Which James?
No, you wouldn't know him.
Right, not me then.
No. There were loads of other people. It wasn't just us. For every presenter, there were like 4 or 5 other people. So James was a director. And a successful director, he went on and did loads of other things. And one of the things that he did was Test the Nation. Do you remember that?
I vaguely recognise the name.
Anne Robinson and Philip Schofield. And it went on all night. Like me, a bit like me, it went on all night.
Test the nation's patience.
Yeah. So what it was a quiz show with Anne Robinson and Philip Schofield. And it was on all Saturday night. In fact, it was one of those weird programmes. Do you remember when they tried programmes that had another programme in the middle? It was on early, then there was like the news and I think Match of the Day, and then it was on again. There was like a break. They tried it. It's like when you went on holiday to France the first time, you put the telly on in the hotel room, you get in the hotel room, go and see if there was an actual toilet instead of like, then you wash your socks and your undies in the bidet. Because of course that's what it's for. And you'd go back and you'd look, and it'd be Antoine Ducon on the telly. Do you remember? Hello, mate. We're a bit like them, aren't we?
Yeah.
Like Antoine and Jean-Paul. Hello, my British chums.
Oh, we was going to do that.
My name is Antoine Ducon, and this is my early friend, Jean-Paul Gaultier. And they did that show where they go, tonight we are going to be talking about the poo-poo and the pee-pee. Actually, I'm not a bad Antoine. We should do that as one of our...
Steve Berry.
Steve Berry.
Yeah, Steve Berry and Jean-Paul Roverman.
Jean-Paul Roverman. Steve Berry, my name is Steve. Right, so anyway, you'd come back in the room and Antoine Ducon would be on the telly talking to people. You'd go out, you'd have a meal, long meal, few drinks, maybe a bit of disco dancing. Paul's a brilliant disco dancer. And you'd come back and he'd still be there talking to people. You'd think, is this programme on all night? Yes, that's what they did in Europe. Italy, France. As you know, if you went to Spain, the Saturday night telly programme would start at 6 o'clock at night. It would still be on at 1 o'clock in the morning. Same people, just singing, dancing, comedy, blah, blah, blah. So this was like an attempt to do that. So on Test the Nation, they had groups of people and James called me because he was the director of it and said, Steve, can we get a team of bikers? But I found out what they actually want. What they're looking for on those quiz shows is a cross section of people. So they want a big one, a little one. It's like Goldilocks. They want a hot one, a cold one, and one in between. They don't want all looky-likey people. Because what had happened was they'd said we'd need bikers, and they got all the geeks that have got like Japanese factory custom bikes, like a little Yamaha 535. And like they're not in an MC, they're not in a patch club or anything like that. And they work in the local government planning office. And there's nothing wrong with that. But those are the sort of people that apply to me on quiz shows. And what he actually wanted was some badass dudes, some real proper bikers, the scary guys on the big Harleys with a patch on the back, full tattoos, the lot, scars, scary people. I said, yeah, I know some of them. So we got all them on the front row and all the guys, Graham and Brian, who worked for the timber merchants, they were at the back and all the badass guys were at the front. So as a consequence of that, Anne Robinson, it was live. Anne Robinson came over at one point during the break in the middle and she stood next to us. And my pal Tootie, if you're watching this, Tootie, Paul Moody in Leeds.
He's not.
He might be.
He's not.
He's retired now, so he might be. Tootie said, oh, he's from Leeds. So he went, all right, Anne. And she went, oh, she looked at him. Now, this dude is the real deal. Full body tattoo. Not just full sleeves, full body, right?
What, Rooty?
All he's wearing, Tootie, careful. Don't make any fun. He's not the sort of fella you want to be making fun of. All he's wearing is a leather waistcoat, nothing underneath it, like fully tattooed, the lot. He's got a big mad beard. He looks like Edward VIII. You know, off like cigars, he looks just like him, but he was a badass biker. He says, all right, Anne. And she said, oh, hello. And she looked at him, and I could see she was sizing him up, and he went, you're a good-looking woman. And she said, thank you. And he said, you've got a cracking pair of tits. Like this. And she said, she never missed a beat. She went, nice of you to notice, they cost enough. And I thought, what a great reply. And off she went. Yeah, but my point being is, if you've ever watched quiz shows on telly and thought, why are these people so stupid? They could get clever people who'd know all the answers, but that doesn't work. So they're going for people of sort of, I would say, they're going for 75% of people above average intelligence, 12.5 people average intelligence, 12.5 people below average intelligence. So they want the occasional thicko, but they want people who probably get about half the questions right. And they're hard to find. I mean, I know a lad in Bolton who breezes through all these quiz shows because it's all he does all day. He'll sit there and memorise the periodic table. He knows all the kings and queens. He's got like acronyms for all the chemical symbols, the periodic table, kings, all of it. But they don't want him because where's the fun in that if he answers all the questions right?
Depends on whether you want to watch a quiz show to learn stuff.
Do you remember a car quiz? Has there been a car quiz show on the telly?
I don't know. And if there hasn't, why hasn't there been? Because it would have been a good idea, wouldn't it?
I'll tell you what, right? So the other day
you should host it.
can you imagine?
Yeah. I
was reminded of the show that succeeded Top Gear when Top Gear got cancelled in 1999. And when I say cancelled, not because we'd said anything bad, although we probably had, but because we ended up, here's my theory, right? And I can say here, this is the best thing because I've never said this out loud before.
Oh.
Here's my theory of why Top Gear got cancelled in 99. We all got shifted. We all got the pushed out. We ended up with 3 bosses. We ended up with a female boss at Factual Entertainment, female boss of BBC Two and a female boss in what we were doing at Birmingham. So all the way up in management, it was women. And they just got sick of all those blokes coming on and going, tonight I'm going to be driving this big car and doing massive burnouts, and me going, hey, mental, it's doing 200 miles an hour. Whatever I was doing, right? They just said, right, we're done with that. And they replaced it with a show called
Men and Motors.
That was on a completely different channel. They replaced it with a show made at Pebble Mill with the same production team as Top Gear. They replaced it with a show called
Top Gear.
Panic Mechanics. Presented by... People know who it's presented by. Who was Panic Mechanics?
Quentin Wilson.
Which was the replacement. He's sort of been mentioned already in this live stream.
Oh, Mike Brewer.
Nearly. Try again.
Nearly? But nearly Mike Brewer.
Higher, my love. Higher, higher, my love. Higher, higher. Bruce Lee. I do a good Bruce Lee.
What, taller?
Higher, my love. Higher. Go on.
Oh.
Not Mike Brewer.
Ed China.
Ed China. And he's just been announced as the new breakfast host on Radio 2. No, not breakfast, not Scott Mills. Afternoon host, replacing Scott Mills on the afternoon show. It is Ed China and Trevor Nelson. This would have been about 2000. And they got members of the public to do car-y stuff, which is never a good idea. Although there's a million of them cluttering up YouTube, walking badly and going and repeating stuff that Mr. Jeffrey Carlson said. After the fiasco that was the Austin Allegro or the Triumph TR7, forgetting that, A, the Allegro got fantastic reviews when it came out because of the brilliant handling and all the other stuff. And B, the Triumph TR7 was the most successful sports car that Triumph ever made. But because Mr. Jeffrey Carlson didn't like them, or pretended to not like them, there are now people cluttering up YouTube going, 10 of the worst cars you've never heard of. Number 10, the Austin Allegro. They've never driven one. They haven't driven the car that preceded it. They haven't driven the car that came after it. They're basing their opinion on watching old Top Gear items where Mr. Jeffrey Carlson looked like B.A. Robertson, what did Bang Bang. He did look like B.A. Robertson. Wearing a really thin tie with a jacket pushed up to the elbows and going, I don't know what you think, but if one was, he used to say one. Mr. Jeffrey Carlson in his car reviews used to say, if one was thinking of spending, and he also used to say, whom? So he'd say, if one was thinking of whom this car is, and you were like, what? Have a look at when he changed. He changed almost overnight like that, and I can tell you why, but I'm not going to hear. Because it's been too much of me and not enough of Paul. Go on, say something, Paul.
Well, I've just been letting you carry on. This is what you do. This is
the good thing about this, because all this stuff...
This is him letting me have a chat now, isn't it? This is exactly what happens when we're in the car together.
I'm telling you why. Yeah, but the thing is, here's the thing. We're dividing. Right, so you might think, oh, you don't let Paul talk. Paul didn't drive the cars back in the day. I did. Paul does the filming and all the editing, which takes ages. I go back and look at what I said back in the day, and I look at what everybody else said, loads of people, and then we come together. So he's got his job, I've got my job. And I would like Paul to talk more in our videos, but sometimes it's me because I went on the launch of the car, or I owned one, or I did a massive road test on it back in the day for a magazine, because I worked for the Sunday Times, I worked for the News of the World, I worked for all kinds of people as a motoring journalist. That's why I'm doing big in the 90s, because I was big in the 90s. What were you doing in the 90s? Going to school.
I was in my 20s. I was living my best life as a 20-year-old man.
Great, wasn't it?
Yeah.
When did you get wed?
Eh?
When did all that end?
Oh.
When did all the fun stop for you?
It didn't. Well, the other thing is, actually, especially while you're doing your walk around thing at the end, it's very difficult for me. I don't really want to interrupt you with that. And plus, I'm trying to keep moving around to keep it interesting. And I don't want to trip over.
Yeah, well, you forget I'm coming from a culture where the camera person never spoke or the director never spoke. Like I said, you know, it's like, and the TG thing that worked, here's why Top Gear worked. There were two people there. Dennis Adams, who you've never heard of, and John Bentley, who you have heard of. And they were the bosses.
Go on, do your John Bentley impression. I like that.
Ah, okay. Hello, I'm John Bentley, and today I'm going to be being Donish, and I've got leather elbow patches on my jacket and a brown briefcase. John was straight from Central Casting. Everybody did John Bentley impressions. You'd meet people in the corridor at Pebble Mill. What a stupid name that was. BBC Birmingham. You meet people in the corridor, they go, hello, and you go, hello. He was a brilliant guy.
Could you hear John Bentley throughout the building of people doing impressions?
Yeah.
So you didn't know whereabouts you were.
Everyone did John Bentley. like people on reception. You go into the reception, they go, good morning. But it's because he was such a irrepressible guy. Very clever guy as well, super clever. One of those people that I met at the BBC who probably should have been running. Right, I'll tell you what. John was one of those guys at the BBC who really should have been running a small country on the other side of the world. If he'd been born 100 years earlier, you'd be at a party, like, with a coupe in your hand, wearing your evening wear, and they'd go, have you met John? He runs Bhutan. And he'd go, hello, yes, I'm running Bhutan at the moment. Because he was just dead clever and really well organised and knew what he was doing and this, that and the other. And he was really hard to kind of...
Upset?
Yes. I never, ever saw him upset. Saw Dennis upset. I'll tell you when I saw Dennis upset.
Les Dennis.
I've got a Les Dennis anecdote in a minute. But, no, Dennis Adams was my boss at Top Gear. Cracking bloke. He was good to me. He kept me on even though I got banned from driving. But I'll tell you, but he was a tough guy. There was no messing with Dennis. And I was in the office when Brendan Coogan came on the telly after he got busted for drink driving. Brendan was a nice guy. He's not his brother, obviously, who's, I think, a bit of a genius. But, nice lad, Brendan. But the problem for Brendan was, and the reason he didn't get kept on, is because he got busted for drink driving. And as my old boss said to me, he said, Steve, you got done for speeding. And most people sort of think speeding's not such a biggie. But most people think drink driving is well out of order. So Brendan had to go. But it was funny. I was in the office, big office, and we've got big screens up on the wall. And it's the news, BBC News at lunchtime. Brendan's coming out of the magistrate's court. He got busted like so many people. And I felt sorry for him in a way. He was driving up to Middlesbrough to watch Middlesbrough play Man United from Manchester. I don't know why I did that the wrong way around, because he was clearly not from Middlesbrough. Unlike Bob Mortimer, who got mentioned earlier, I think is from Middlesbrough. Anyway, he was driving up there and he'd had a few the night before. And he was trying to get to the kickoff and it was like 2:45 and he was on the outskirts of Middlesbrough. So he was speeding and got pulled over. They went, oh, blow into this bag, sir. He was still over the limit from the night before. So he had to go to the magistrate's court, came out, and he'd been busted and banned. And he said, in light of, he was like reading a statement, and it said, in light of what has happened today, I would like to offer my resignation. And I'll never forget this. Dennis had a cup in his hand, like this. And he went, resignation! The cup just went flying across the room. Smashed. He went back in his office and I thought, let that be a lesson to you, Berry. But it was funny, yeah, because he thought they might have kept him on even though he got a drink driving conviction.
Not on the BBC.
What do you think would have happened if they kept him? Do you think, just think if they kept him and he'd become established, because they were looking for another...
For that other guy you mentioned before. The one whose name we haven't actually...
Which name are we looking for here?
The one that we haven't actually said, but the one where we did the striding chap talking about bad driving.
Oh,
Alistair.
Alistair McTrat? Yeah. So, Alistair Stewart, the newsreader, who used to do that programme, what was it called? Police Camera Action. Tonight, police chase a car that speeds up to 80 miles an hour. Right, Paul, what's the fastest you've ever been on the road?
70.
No. Come on, what's the fastest? You might have been to Germany. What's the fastest?
I've never been to Germany.
Well, I've. But on a British road, the fastest I've been is 221 miles an hour. I wasn't driving. And you're going to say, oh, a bit of Billy bullshit there, Derry. 221 mile an hour. Well, what were you in? I'll tell you what I was in. I was in a Corvette Callaway Sledgehammer Le Mans specification. An actual legit Le Mans racer on a Sunday afternoon on the M1. And the dude who was driving wound it up to 221 miles an hour. And the reason I know it was going that fast is because it didn't have speedos and stuff like that. It was a racing car. It had a massive stack display, like there. He's driving, it's there. And I saw it rattle up to 221 mile an hour on the M1 on a Sunday afternoon. I thought, show no emotion. I was sat there like that. I was like, stone face. That's the fastest I've been on the road.
What you would do on a roller coaster.
I hate roller coasters.
Yeah.
It's the illusion of danger, isn't it?
Yeah, but that's why you can do that. You can just sit there.
Yeah, but nothing's going to happen. So it's like you're just being pointlessly thrown around the place. Ride a motorbike. If you want the actual thrills of a roller coaster with actual real life-threatening danger, try a motorcycle.
That's advice from Steve.
Yeah. Fastest I've been on a bike on the road, 192. I also got pulled over in Germany for only doing 155 on a bike. The cops pulled me over. For only doing 155? Yeah. They gave me a bit of talking to. I was trying to overtake a line of traffic. Slowly. And they at 155, because the bike had a limiter. So I'd hit the limiter and I thought, oh, it's got a limit to this. Next thing I hear is a siren. And I thought, oh dear. And then I remembered, I thought, hold on a minute, they haven't got speed limits here. They pulled me over and they went, you can't go that slow in the fast lane. Oh, right, on the fast lane, yeah. I was like... You were lane hogging at 150 miles an hour. I was lane hogging. I was trying to overtake this line of traffic. And they went, you keep over to the other side if you're only going to do 155 mile an hour. While they were telling me off, two cars went past. A 911 with an A8 right up his jacksie. And I reckon they were doing about 185, 190. The tyre noise was absolutely insane. Excuse me, someone's left the gate open again. Somebody's left the gate open again? That means I'm stuck here talking to these good people or whoever's like, sorry about this, we got busted by Storm Burt. We tried really hard to drive a Mondeo because we thought, we haven't done a Mondeo. And do you not think, Paul, that in a way the Mondeo was the defining car of the 90s? What? The Mondeo was the car that defined the 90s, wasn't it? Because it ran certainly from, one of them, yeah. It ran, the Mark 1 ran from 93 to 99. And it's a sort of car... With a facelift. It's a sort... Yeah, I didn't say the Mark 2. The Mark 1 from 93 to... Ford made it confusing though, didn't they? Because you had the Mark 1 Mondeo, and then they had a facelift on the front and the back. There were two. Because what they did... Who was it that said this the other day? Somebody famous in cars. I remember it was. And he said... The history of successful car production is always innovation followed by revolution, followed by innovation, followed by revolution. So you never have revolution because you lose your audience. People it's just too much for them if you're too crazy. Which is why there's a massive difference between the first Citroen C5s that came out, which I loved because they were such a weird shape. They looked like a giant suppository, didn't they? Yeah, they're just really awkward looking. Yeah, and they did it in some really wacky colours, like crazy greens and blues and the sort of colours that nobody else did them in. By the time the C5 was about 12, 14 years into its production, it looked like an Audi. And they got rid of the hydropneumatic. I drove past an Audi A4 today, and I couldn't really decide how old it was. It was quite new. It was quite a new one. I thought it looks old, looks dated. But in the same way that the older Audis now, at the time they looked old, now they don't look old. Yeah, but this is why we're doing big in the 90s, because we honestly believe that the 90s was the last time, and we'd like to know what you think, obviously. Sort of. We're saying that.
But you're not going to give them a chance.
Not really. No, because I think people agree with us, Paul. I think people who know anything about cars, and I think we've not got a massive audience, but I think we've got a very knowledgeable audience, because I read the comments, and then I threaten the people who say nasty things. No, I don't do that.
What year did the C5 come out?
What are you asking me that for?
Because I find most cars, I just know what year they came out, so without really being interested.
So the C5, what did the C5 replace?
The Xantia.
No, it's much bigger car.
Was it?
Yeah. Do you remember we saw that guy who had 3?
It wasn't bigger than the
Right,
XF.
so if you're that fella, or if you know that fella in, what was that place we were in? Slaithwaite.
Slowit.
If you're in Slaithwaite and you know that bloke that's got 3 Citroen Xanthias.
No. That was
Hebden Bridge.
Shipley.
Shipley in Yorkshire. Shipley in Yorkshire. There's a fella there, right? And he's got, that knows, 3 Citroen Xanthias. We want to meet him.
Yeah.
He's a Xanthia fancier. Yeah.
Xanthia Turner.
So the Xanthia Redfern. Give us a 12. Do I want a cup of tea? Of course I want a cup of tea. It'd be great if we could let everybody else have a cup of tea as well.
It would actually, yeah.
My point being, and again I think you a lot agree, the 90s was the last time that cars were different. When cars had a national identity. Where if you looked at a silhouette of a Citroen, you went, that's a Citroen. If you saw a BMW. I was driving in Manchester yesterday past a massive line of traffic, Paul, and do you know what I saw?
Oh, yeah.
A BMW E34. And I thought, we've got to get an E34 on Bigger Than 90s, because I loved my E34. I had, since you asked, Paul, a black with black leather E34 525 wagon TDSE with the twin sunroofs.
I do remember when you tell me these things, you know.
And I love that car. It was great because it was very durable. The performance was good. The fuel consumption was good. And the more I did with it and the more I drove it and the more I had to replace things, I realised how well made it was. Because you only know that, really. You don't know how well made a car is from driving it, do you? It's only when you put your hands on it and you look at where they could have made a shortcut or done it cheaply, but they've chosen to do it properly. A mate of mine was talking about this and he said, that's the difference between working on a Jag from back in the day and working on an Aston Martin or a Ferrari. You realise that a Jag, an E-Type, get this is what he said, an E-Type was made the same way as a Ford Cortina. It was a mass-produced car. It was clonk, they were shooting a brilliant car, beautiful car. I'd love one. They're worth crazy amounts of money now.
But they were cheap.
It was a mass-produced car.
No, I mean they were
expensive. No, they weren't cheap. They were affordable.
They were nothing like the kind of price of a Ferrari, though, were they?
No,
Aston.
No, but a Ferrari or an Aston Martin. There's the difference. There was a stat the other day that said that Lamborghini are now making more cars every year than they made in the first 35 years of Lamborghini's production. But they are, aren't they? When did you ever see a Lamborghini? Where are you watching this from? We're in Rochdale. You might be in Hartlepool or Glasgow or Cork or, another place like Rochdale, a medium to large sized town. When did you ever see back in the day a Ferrari, a Lamborghini? You didn't. I see one every day. I live in Salford. They're all over the bloody place.
They're all over the place here as well.
The Uros, the 4x4 one, they're all over the place. Although, the wacky thing about growing up in Bury, because I'm from Bury just down the road, I'm Steve Bury from Bury, and I just found out my real name is Bury, B-U-R-Y. It is.
Found it.
Yeah, I just found out. Do you know how I found out? I went to a pub that was founded by my great-great-grandfather, John Berry, and they had all this information about him. And in part of the information and the history of the pub, which is called the Yew Tree, it's a beautiful place called Anglesark near Rivington, where all the bikers go in the northwest. Rivington Barn, it's near there. Beautiful it is. my great-great-grandfather's pub, the Yew Tree. And when he got, was it when he got married or when he had a kid? It was when he got married. And on his wedding certificate, they changed his name. And a mate of mine was the registrar for Wigan. And I said, when my when he got married, they went, yeah, he was probably illiterate because he was a farm worker. Like Mr. Jeffrey Carlson, he was a farm worker. And like Jeffrey Carlson, he was illiterate. So he said, when they did the wedding certificate, they would have said, what's your name? And he said, John Berry. His name was John Berry, B-U-R-Y, but they wrote it down B-E-R-R-Y. And so from then on, and he couldn't read, so they gave him his wedding certificate. There you go, mate. And he didn't go, you spelt my name wrong, because he didn't know how to read and write. So that was how we ended up. Anyway, coming from Bury, we had Paul, a Porsche dealer, when I was a kid, and a Ferrari dealer. How nuts is that? In Bury, Lancashire. At the time, right, do you know how many Porsche dealers there were at the time in the UK outside of Greater London? How many?
I love these guessing games. 49.
There were 13.
Oh.
13. Yeah, they weren't common cars.
No.
Porsche, Ferrari, Lamborghini, Bentley, Aston Martin, they weren't common cars. Nobody had one of them. I'm trying to think. There were two, when I was a kid, there were two really smart cars that I used to see in Bury Town Centre. I lived in the town centre, and I'd walk past, and people are going to be thinking this, I'd walk past endless lines of Austins, Vauxhall Vivas, Ford Escorts, Ladas, Moscoviches, Wartburgs, all those cheap cars that they brought in. There were two cars. There was a fella called Mr. Monkhouse who had an insurance company with various branches, and his head branch was in Bury, and he had a red E-Type. And there was Tony, and people know this, some people. Tony, who had Vibes in Bury, the record shop, and he had a record label, and he had a record shop, and he had a white 911. And used to see it in the street, and I just used to think that is absolutely the dog's danglies. But most people had what my dad had. What was the first car your dad had?
It was an Anglia, I think.
An Anglia, yeah. And the first car my dad had,
an Austin, no.
when I was a kid, was a Mini Countryman, and it was when I was 10 years old. We didn't have a car till I was 10 years old. We lived in the town centre. Bury Market, with 350 stalls that people still come to from all over the north and the Midlands, was literally a quarter of a mile from our house. My dad worked a mile from our house in a paper mill. Remember when we had things like that? Factories and paper mills that huge numbers of people could go to work in. And my dad cycled to the paper mill, and then when cycling a mile got a bit much for him, he got a Honda 90. The world's most successful internal combustion engine vehicle. Honda 90, a chicken chaser, a plaque. Do you remember that? What did you call live stream people? What did you call a Honda 90? Did you call it a chicken chaser, a plaque, or did you have another word?
I thought chicken chaser was the term that came much later with scooters, but obviously not. But I remember those Honda 90s. There were loads of them about, weren't they?
What do you mean you remember them? They made over 70 million of them.
Yeah, that's what
I remember the world's most successful internal combustion. You'll be remembering Panda Pops and what's it like Peter Kay in a minute.
Don't.
Peter Kay's too young to remember when the roller cola man used to come round.
Do you like Peter Kay?
Yeah, I think he's a fantastic bloke. I've been to his house. I'm not his mate, but I have been to his house. He's got and he lives in Bolton. Unlike all those other people that go on about Boughton all the time.
Boughton.
Like Jimmy Tarbuck used to go on about Liverpool, and the Gallaghers are going, all right, kid, Manchester in the house. And I've lived in Notting Hill for the last 25 years. At least Peter Kay has the decency to live in Bolton. That fella will live and die in Bolton. Plus, and he is funny, but it's almost like, I hear him doing all that stuff about what he remembers from back in the day, and I think, you borrowed these memories from people that are older than you, which is fine because it's funny. I don't care. As long as he's funny, I don't care if it's chronologically correct.
I never thought about that, but yeah, he is too young. That's why he appeals to much older people. Yeah,
but what I do find odd is when he goes down to London and he sells out London Palladium. I think, what's going on there? Because I just think his comedy is very specific to the Northwest. It's very Northwest humour. Like Fred, mind you, Fred Dibnah was dead popular, wasn't he? Not with his numerous wives. I love Fred. I thought he was great. But the other thing that people put, right, stop putting this thing on the internet.
Stop it.
Stop it.
Now.
Now, stop putting that thing where Fred said,
now then.
Britain were built by men in boiler suits and like the men in suits and going on about the men in suits. If it wasn't for the men in suits, the other men wouldn't have built all that stuff. The men in suits were the one who had the idea to build something and then went and got the money and then employed the other people to do the work.
But that's still kind of what
Isambard Kingdom Brunel was one of those men in suits.
Yes, he was.
Who had to go and get finance from the City of London for his business projects, which he employed other people to do. Do you think that an Irish navvy sat there, where my family are from, by the way, my mother's side, from County Wicklow, do you think they would have sat there and gone, I think I'm going to go to Manchester and dig a giant canal? No, they wouldn't have thought that was a good idea.
But without all those people, it couldn't have happened, could it?
What it needed was the navvies who dug out the Manchester Ship Canal because Scousers were having us over a barrel. Yeah, you lot, Scousers, you were having us over a barrel, sending our goods out through Port of Liverpool. That wasn't any good. That was why Lord Leverhulme built Port Sunlight, because you were having us, yeah. No, but them lads, the Irish lads, my lot, who came over and dug out the ship canal and the main basin. Paul, do you know how many million tons of water you can fit in the main basin of the Manchester Ship Canal?
I don't.
How many? Millions.
In millions.
It's in millions of tons. The main basin, the big basin where the Lowry Theatre is and where you can see Man United from the other side and all. I worked there. I lived
42.
there. That's a good guess. It's 58 million tons of water could fit into the main basin. And it was dug out by hand by Irishmen with shovels. And a good navvy could dig 2 ton of earth a day. 2 ton a day. By hand. Amazing.
Yeah, I mean that achievement is really definitely worth your retirement, isn't it?
Somebody asked me if I wanted to be the next Fred Dibnah, a TV executive.
The next Fred Dibnah?
Yeah, I got a phone call from a genuine TV executive, and he said, "How would you like to be the next Fred Dibnah?" And
how could you be?
What they said was, "Well, how could I be?"
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what do you want me to do? Do you want me to get up on big buildings in the Greater Manchester area and do like roofing work? Because I've done a lot of that. Me and my dad, who when they closed the mill, went like roofing and jobbing building, would regularly go up on buildings in the Greater Manchester area, including Bury Parish Church, grade 1 listed, by the way, one of the biggest churches in Greater Manchester. We would go up on those churches to do work and find Fred had carved his initials into the bell tower. He had a very distinctive hand, Fred, because I think he'd been to art school. There was the thing about Fred, it was all like, hey, I'm Fred Dibnah from Belton, and I'm like, but he'd been to art school. So it was all a little bit of a, I loved him, he was great.
So you can't hold it against him that he had an artistic nature as well as being a proper working class chimney climbing man.
A bit like John Lennon, he sort of exaggerated his working class credentials.
Oh, right, yeah.
Which I would never do.
You won't need to.
We've said this before, I'm not working class. I am solidly lower middle class.
Yeah, well, actually then, yeah, you
and there's nothing wrong with that. Like them lads we mentioned before, Ratcliffe and McCorney, we're lower middle class. We were the lot that got in when New Labour came to the fore. And that's why we're so roundly despised by most people. Because we elbowed all the Etonians out of the way. We were like, yeah, move over. Jacob Rees-Mogg, well, not Jacob Rees-Mogg, but his dad. I was actually on a show with Jacob Rees-Mogg's dad. Yeah.
When?
Right, in the 90s.
That's what we're talking about, by the way.
Yeah,
the 90s.
That's why I said it, Paul.
When we get into the first hour, then we'll start talking about the 90s.
I was on a radio show with Jacob Rees-Mogg's dad, and we were talking about, get this. Thank you, Paul. What a gent. I hope you're all enjoying a cup of tea. Gentlemen, there's no women watching this. It's all fellas.
There's one there.
Rubbish. There's no women watching this nonsense. So I was on a show with Jacob Rees-Mogg's dad, and here was the topic for discussion. Here was the topic to discussion. Whither the dinner party? Whither the dinner party? And he was saying, he was going, as you'd imagine, he was going, sometimes when he spoke like Mr. Jeffrey Carlson, sometimes when one is asked to a dinner party, it seems more like a glorified supper. And I've ended up stood in the kitchen at what was allegedly a dinner party. Standards have slipped. And so they got me on and they said, what do you think? So I thought, I knew exactly what was required. I went, bloody posh folk in London with the dinner parties and a cool thing, we have fish supper like a chip shop and that, yeah. I just gave it loads of that.
Oh yes, you become ever so slightly illegible.
More no, the guy basically said, Steve, just be the northern guy. And I went, yeah, mate. Because what happens is you get friends, like last week. So obviously big in the 90s, and it's meant to be like when I was on the telly and this, that, and the other, but I'm on telly all the time now, but not with my own programme or not on a proper programme. Because you get on a list, they go, who can we get on to give us a soundbite that'll prompt a social media response, a headline in the newspaper. If you look, every time I'm on Talk TV or GB News, they clip it and stick it on YouTube because they know that I'm going to say something provocative. Like last week when I said that everybody who was moaning about those Jaguar adverts was a massive homophobic, xenophobic bigot who hadn't paid attention to the fact that Jaguar sales have been in decline for many, many years, and that the bloke they brought in to rescue the brand has decided to take Jaguar back to where they were decades ago when they built cars like the XKSS and the XK120, and they had a tiny audience of very wealthy people. They're doing what Cadillac did. Cadillac have done the same in the States. They've gone from putting a Cadillac badge on a diesel Vauxhall to selling cars that cost $350,000. Do you know why, Paul?
Image change.
Because if you can sell one car for $350,000, it's a lot easier than selling 10 cars for 35,000 quid, which is what they were doing, or dollars, or whatever it is. And because Jaguar have that heritage, like Cadillac said, forget those Vauxhalls. What was it called? The BLS or something?
Bullshit.
Recently, you could buy an Insignia or a similar car from the General Motors range that had a Cadillac badge and the Cadillac name on it. And it had like a diesel 2-litre engine. They said, pretend that never happened. Here's a picture of a pink 59 Eldorado Biarritz. That's us. That's Cadillac. Remember when the only people that could afford our cars were like Elvis and Howard Hughes? Right, well, that's when we're going back to. Forget all that cheap crap. And Jaguar right now are saying, you've got a diesel X-Type with 250,000 miles on it.
Yeah, so it's you, isn't it? It's you that spoilt Jaguar. You and your X-Type diesel estate.
It's nothing to do with spoiling Jaguar.
It's you. It's your fault.
How is it my fault?
Because you've got one.
I wouldn't have bought one new, and I have got one, yeah. I've got a diesel X-Type.
Yeah.
Right?
And so it's you that want to get rid of.
Do you know how many Jags I've had?
No.
Try me.
What, owned personally?
Yes, owned personally.
Yeah.
With my name on the logbook.
12.
Yeah, well done. I told you.
You haven't actually.
I have had 12.
My guess is it's just getting better. You've never told me that.
Yeah, I've had 12
If you had done, I would have remembered.
Including XJR with a full pulley kit and straight through catback exhaust, all that carry on with 370 horsepower. I've had 4 or 5 X300s, 308s, 2 XJ40s, including K9 ADP, Where Are You Now? Beautiful ice blue with pale blue leather interior, 4-litre XJ40. What a car that was. I've had 2 X-Types, 3 S-Types, including X-Type R. I've had a lot of Jags. I was brought up in a Jag.
Guess how many I've had?
Go on.
No, you guess.
None.
No.
Oh, interesting.
I've had one.
You've had one?
I had a 308.
Ah, yeah. Well, they're great. Right. So if you were going to buy a Jag now, which one would you get?
Oh, probably another one of those.
I love them, and I do like the aluminium bodied with the V6 3-litre petrol.
That's what I had.
However, do you know what the problem with them is? They're too big. They're too physically large.
Big on the outside, small on the inside.
They're too big. I live in Manchester city centre, and negotiating those streets in a car of that size,
as well.
I want to be able to park it. When I lived in London, about 8 years ago, I lived in London for about 7 years.
Postcode?
N7, dear boy. Islington.
Ah.
I was in the media, darling. I still am, so I lived in Islington with all the media people. In my Waitrose, I used to see Raymond Blanc, right? Raymond Blanc, Clive Anderson, Clive Anderson, and best of all, in the queue, lovey, Sir Ian McKellen. Hello, lovey. Sir Ian McKellen in the queue at Waitrose. I remember I saw him there all the time. And I remember what I saw him doing. When you shop, I've shopped with you, Paul. When you shop, you're almost like me when you shop. So if I go in a shop, I see tea like that. Right, now obviously I won't buy that because it's Yorkshire tea.
That's what you're drinking, mate.
What I do is I get proper tea instead of that crap. And how do you grow tea in Yorkshire anyway? Come on. Anyway, what, on Ilkley Moor? Is that where you grow it? Right. So when I get tea, this is how I get it. I go, tea, and throw it in the thing. Right. Whenever I used to see Sir Ian McKellen, I used to see him there all the time. In the Waitrose, where I lived in N7, he'd be like that. I always found him looking at what he was thinking of buying, like this. And I used to think, I know what he's doing. He's like thinking about his theatrical performances. He's not thinking about what he's looking at. He's thinking about how he's thinking about his King Lear, isn't he, that he's doing at the National or whatever.
Two things I thought you were going to say then is one that he was quite keen on being recognised, and the longer he would hang about, not that then, okay.
He's obviously an excellent person that wouldn't think that for 1 minute.
Right.
No.
Okay. The other thing is that he just loves the shopping experience and wants to make it last as long as possible. So by hanging around with your tea bags, no one's going to say in the shop, "Come on, mate, hurry up and buy the thing."
I think he was thinking of higher things. I think he was thinking that line in Act 2 or whatever, because he's like one of our greatest living. He's one of the national treasures, isn't he? The national treasures: Judi Dench, Patrick Stewart, Sir Ian McKellen, and Alan Bennett. The national treasures.
Alan Bennett.
He's from Yorkshire.
Apparently, I sound like Alan Bennett.
You don't sound a little bit like Alan Bennett. Alan Bennett sounds like that. You don't sound a little bit like Alan Bennett. No, he'd watch us, Alan Bennett. I bet he's really into his motors.
I bet he is too.
That's the problem when we do that thing where we say, who would have this car? Who would drive a car like this? Did I tell you about when I was on through the Keyhole, Paul?
You might have mentioned it in the video as well as...
might have mentioned it.
You might have mentioned it, yeah.
I'll tell you what they did with through the Keyhole. They imported a load of bullshit items to your house.
Oh, yeah, I don't think you put... Yeah, you did actually.
They rocked up with a van with loads of stuff in it. We had, at the time, me and the former Mrs. Berry, look, I'm doing that thing with my nose. I've only done that once, if you notice. I do it in the cars because of bloody aircon. Anyway. We had beautiful mid-century furniture. Me and the former Mrs. Berry were big fans of that sort of Scandi look. You know, like the sort of teak and dark leathers and whatever. And they rocked up and they had a sofa that was made out of the back end of a 57 Chevy. And the missus was appalled. As soon as they finished filming, she was like, "Get that thing out of my house." Because we had dead tasteful stuff.
It's a bit of a weird thing, that though, isn't it? That they dress your house to look like what you'd expect it to look like, rather than what it is.
Yeah, they couldn't believe that I didn't have loads of motorbike stuff on display in my house. And I was thinking, have you met my missus?
Yeah, but would you do otherwise?
What I'd like to do, love, is I'd like to take down that beautiful painting of, I think, what did we have for years? We had a painting of Paris in the 1970s. A proper original oil painting of it. And they said, oh yeah, and they put a picture of Carl Fogarty there or something.
Yeah, but the thing is, just because you like something or do something doesn't necessarily mean you want to display it. I mean,
if they'd gone in the garage, which was full of motorbikes, they would have gone, who would live in a house like this? Someone who rides a motorcycle.
You know, you're talking about normcore.
We didn't, normcore.
Yeah, well,
that seems forever ago, normcore.
I used to hate it when people would buy me an item for a birthday or Christmas that had a guitar on it, because they thought, well, he's a musician, he likes guitars, let's get him a keyring with a guitar on it, let's get him a badge with a guitar on it. I'm not going to wear that. I don't do that. And I imagine your house was the same kind of thing. You don't, just because you like something doesn't mean you want to display it everywhere.
Guess what people would
do
buy me for Christmas or birthdays?
Bottle of whiskey.
In the 90s, when I'm on the telly, on Top Gear, people...
Jeremy Clarkson DVD.
would sometimes...
I might have... I might not have been too far off, actually.
Buy me a Mr. Jeffrey Carlson DVD. You like cars, don't you? You like cars, there you go. I knew what it was. When I was unwrapping it, I knew what it was going to be. The best car, Jewel, Clarkson pause, in the world. They'd buy me a fucking the first swear.
Oh, right, but you can get away with it. You can get away with
when I was on Top Gear with him, and everybody knew I didn't like him because it had been in the paper, and he didn't like me, the feeling was mutual. Although I did say lots of lovely things about him when the guy from The Guardian interviewed me. Because I said he's a brand.
You always say nice things to me about him.
Well, I think right, here's the thing. I think he might be, if he can stay alive long enough, because his health isn't great. And by the way, I might not like him, but I really, really don't want anything bad to happen to him. You know, like, you dislike someone. You don't want them to die. Like, I don't want him to die or anything like that. But I think he might be the next Prime Minister.
Yeah.
Right, now, if you're thinking to yourself, don't be so stupid. Look who's the President of America. Yeah, that guy. So is it so bizarre and weird that Jeremy... Oh, let's have a think about Jeremy Clarkson, why he might be the next Prime Minister. He went to one of the most expensive public schools in the UK. He lives on a massive farm next door to David Cameron, who's one of his big mates, who also used to be the Prime Minister. And he's massively popular, and way, way more popular than I could ever dream of being, which is why he might be the next Prime Minister. And I'm stood next to the Wookiee talking to you lot on a phone.
I'll be your deputy.
You could be my John Prescott.
Yeah.
I felt a bit sad when he died the other day, but he was 86.
Yeah, he wasn't young.
No.
And he still threw a good punch earlier on in the year, didn't he?
Yeah, but he was from that time when working class people were allowed to be like senior in government, which obviously is gone. Oh no, Angela Rayner. Yeah, because is she from like really close to here, Angela Rayner? Oh, we're getting into politics. We shouldn't do that, should we? Because we might upset and alienate some of you with our strange political views.
No, it's easy enough to actually express an opinion whilst remaining firmly on the fence.
Yeah.
You and I managed to do that quite well because we talk about this stuff all the time, and I still don't know, whether you're left or right.
There's a picture of me with Boris Johnson. And people think that because there's a picture of me with Boris Johnson, I approve of Boris Johnson. No, sir. It doesn't mean that. You'll never know if I do or I don't approve of Boris Johnson. I don't think it's my place to approve or disapprove of Boris Johnson. But my great-great-granddad, not the one that built that pub I was talking about, the one who came over from Ireland and made a lot of money, he helped to build the Conservative and Unionist Club in Bury, Lancashire. And so when Boris rocked up to celebrate its whatever anniversary, I said to him, you used to be the motoring correspondent of GQ. I think, and the Evening Standard at one point. And he said, "Oh yes," and I said, "Hey, take a picture." My mate Fred, who's passed on now, had a picture of him with Saddam Hussein. But guess what? And they were both smiling in the picture. They were like this. They were like that, him and Saddam Hussein. But it's because in 1985, Saddam Hussein was the Minister of Sport, as opposed to the Minister of Death in Iraq. And the World Ballooning Championships were in Iraq, because that's the sort of place you go ballooning. And Fred was in the British team, and he said, "Here, take a picture of me and this fella, Saddam Hussein." So, of course, he had it above the mantelpiece in his house, just like I had a big, horrible picture of Carl Fogarty, done with, like, pastels. There's nothing worse than a picture of motorsport done in pastels, is there? Because motorsport is, like, angular and vivid and in your face, and then somebody does a lovely watercolor or like a pastel drawing of it, and you think, and then they say, "Oh, it's a limited edition," and you go in somebody's house and they've got it. The other thing is, you haven't got a picture of your dog above the mantelpiece, have you? Have you?
No.
Good, because if the actual dog is there at the time, and then people have got a picture of the dog, I've got pictures of people who I don't live with, so I can go, "Oh yeah, that's what they look like." I haven't got like a picture of them next to them, you know, and the same, like round here when you go in somebody's house and they've got like L.S. Lowry prints, and you think, "Oh, do you want to see what a cobble street in Lancashire looks like? Why not open the front door?" Oh yeah. I've got a picture of Tahiti. I've got a massive painting of Tahiti on my wall in Salford. Because if I want to see Salford, I can look out the window. Oh, look, there's Salford.
What about if you had a picture of your own flat?
That'd be meta, wouldn't it? But life is meta now, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? Like this is pretty meta for me. You've got to remember, when I started doing this, there were like loads of people spending 2.5 days making 3 or 4 minutes of content. Yeah, that's what we used to do. That's how it was done. You had like 2.5. We'd go away, maybe we'd have 2 days, and then the finished item on the telly would be 4 minutes long, 5 minutes long, whatever. Now, of course, that's gone now, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Good thing or bad thing?
What, me?
No, the way that content creation has changed, Paul. Good thing or bad thing?
Some of it's good, some of it isn't. I'm not really a fan of anything other than what we do. Have you ever known anyone to have a picture of themselves in the house?
Oh, yeah.
I think that's a bit strange.
Absolutely.
Unless it's a picture of the back of them.
Right. Do you know what people who have loads of pictures of themselves in their own house are always into in a big way?
What?
Yoga.
Oh, gosh.
Yep.
That's an interesting
Right. Have a think about that. Think to yourself, oh, yeah. That guy, /woman, /whatever, which is fine, by the way. It's the yoga I object to, not the whatever you do with your private bits in your private life. Fine by me. But the yoga, I can't forgive that.
You do yoga?
I do not do yoga. In fact, I've thrown out a challenge to a bloke who does yoga who wants to roll with the berry boy. And I say this, because he said to me, "Oh, I see you're very strong, but you're not, your flexibility, that if we actually got into like a hand-to-hand," and I went, "Mate, bring it on. Try me." Yeah, because he does yoga, he thinks he can tie me up in knots. We'll see about that. We'll see about that.
We should have an arm wrestle now.
An arm wrestle? I don't want to hurt you, mate. People are look back at some of the videos. Look how hench I am at 60-year-old. Yeah, I am. Check it out.
Go on, he's going to get his kit off now if you're not careful.
Yeah, but it just annoys me when somebody says, "Oh yeah, well you can flip that £150 truck tyre with one hand and you swing a £50 kettlebell above your head like it's a shopping bag. But I do yoga, so I could probably beat you in a fight." Really? I don't want to have a fight with anybody. But if you're going to say random stuff like that, that's like, then I'm going to take offence in a way. But whatever. I don't care. I don't want to fight anybody.
So, should we talk about 90s cars now?
90s cars?
Yeah.
Why would we do that? The whole point of what we do is that we're not really talking about cars, because here's the interesting thing.
We do a bit though.
Here's the interesting thing. They're kind of all the same, aren't they? So you've got to find something. I think that's the difference between talking about cars and journalism. And I still think that what I'm doing here is journalism, because when you watch our stuff, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to find a point, if you will. All the random stuff hopefully leads to, it's like we're panning for gold. We've got a pan full of grit. We're going like that. Oh, look, a shiny bit. There's the shiny bit. Keep panning, keep panning, keep panning. And like the other day, we were supposed to do the Mondeo. And I think I've got a point to make about the Mondeo. So Mondeo video coming soon. I've got a point to make about the Mondeo that I don't think anybody else has made. And I absolutely love it when I think I'm able to find something and offer some sort of insight. Because otherwise, what are we doing? What are we doing otherwise? Going, oh, look, a car that was made exactly the same way as every other car on a production line like all the others, with an engine that is a copy of whatever.
Would you say that the 90s was the start of things being a little bit generic? Even though we both agree it's the peak motoring period.
I think it happened after the 90s, Paul. But I think it happened about 15 to 17 years ago. And I think in the age of the crossover, I looked at what, the other day when I was doing my Mondeo research, I looked at what was the best-selling car, what were the best-selling cars in Britain. Because do you realise for the 90s, bestsellers for 5 years, Fiesta,
Escort,
then Focus. Fiesta, right at the end of the 90s.
all right.
Fiesta, Escort,
Astra.
no. Fiesta, Escort, Mondeo, Fiesta, Escort, Fiesta. It was the 3 Fords, and then after that, the 3 Vauxhalls, Corsa, Astra, Cavalier, Corsa, Astra, Vectra. There's 6 best-selling cars with the 3 Fords and the 3 Vauxhalls. And yet, cars like the Mondeo and the Vectra, with cars like that, where are they now? Who's buying them? I mean, the Japanese are still making them because Americans still buy them. But the people that I know that own newish cars, new cars rather, they're buying Kias, obviously. Kia's now the 3rd biggest car brand in the UK.
Well, even BMW have kind of given up on the traditional saloon car, haven't they?
Yeah. When do you see a BMW? There was a 3 Series, a 5 Series and a 7 Series. It was Goldilocks. Goldilocks again. One was too hot, one was too cold, one was just right. They made 3 cars, didn't they, really, BMW? 3 Series, 5 Series, 7 Series, and it was enough for most people's means.
Now I'm going to make about 33.
It's just bewildering. And I think that's why we focused on the 90s, because the problem now is that not only have the lines been blurred between, I mean, although, having said that, the Mondeo sort of starts it, doesn't it? Because do you know what the Mondeo's designation was before they settled on the name Mondeo? CDW 27.
That's an interesting name.
Do you know what that stands for?
No, I don't.
I will tell you.
Sounds like a formula.
It is a formula. It is a formula. It's clever because it's called a CD because it's between a C segment car and a D segment car in terms of size. 27. W was for world car, so it was CD. So a car between a C and a D that was a world car, and which was their 27th version, the platform that it sat on thereof. And then they decided on I'll tell you what, the history of how the Mondeo came to market is interesting, I think. But boy, was it a protracted and difficult and complicated process and expensive to get from let's build a world car to them getting Mondeos in showrooms. The amount of discord within the Ford Motor Company, the amount of arguing and disagreements and people getting sacked and people getting replaced and different departments of Ford sort of plotting against each other to try and get their version of the, because that's what they do, isn't it? And that was a very American way. People forget Ford's an American car, not you lot, because you're not stupid, but people forget Ford's an American car company. And what they would do is set the different parts of Ford and get internal competition. People who work for big companies will know that this was a big 90s management thing. Oh, we've got to get people to compete internally for, they've got a tender for, even though we all work for the same company.
So causing a fight at the office party.
Yeah, let's pretend we don't. Let's compete internally. And of course, what that led to was a massive amount of division, a massive amount of unnecessary expense, a massive amount of time spent on internal politics instead of actually building the car. And as we know, before the 90s, some cars were actually almost the product of two people or three people. One, an executive who has the idea, right, we're going to build a two-seater sports car. The design, you ring up Dewey Jarrow or Sir Peter of Stevens, you ask him for a design, he sends it you, and then you've got a brilliant engineer, like, say, Richard Parry-Jones at Ford or somebody like that, or Bob Lutz, or all kinds of people within the industry, and they do all the oily bits, and then they've got the lovely looking bits. And so when the car appears, it's really three people. The exec who okayed it, the person who did all the bits that go round and push against each other, and then the person who went, there, make it look like that. In the 90s, you've got something like the Mondeo, where Ford of Germany, Ford of Britain, Ford back in Detroit, they're all competing. And at the end of the day, the Mondeo, which is supposed to be a world car and was called the Contour in the States, I think. Was it called the Contour and then the Fusion, or was it called the Fusion and then the Contour? And the Mercury Mystique, which was kind of the slightly posher. Because we've never had Mercury in the UK, have we? And we never had Lincoln. Actually, I think we did. I think in the 30s you could buy a Lincoln in the UK. A V12, yeah. Imagine that.
That's a very long time ago.
It was a very long time ago. 100 years ago, Paul.
Well, almost.
But the Mercury Mystique and the Contour were meant to be exactly like the Mondeo. It was meant to be a car for the whole world, but it didn't.
Names.
It didn't work. It didn't work in the States. It was too diddy. They still wanted a much bigger car than that. Whereas
it did work here.
What?
Well, it works here.
Of course it worked too. It worked brilliantly, because they said, would you like a car that's bigger than a Sierra but smaller than a Granada? And they went, oh yeah, go on then. How much is it? And I for one think that Mark 1 Mondeo looked great.
Yeah, I don't think it was any bigger than the Sierra though.
Internally it was. Got a massive boot.
Oh yeah, the bonnet's shorter.
Yeah.
That's why. But I think the overall external dimensions were the same.
I think the Mondeo's interesting because the first one looked great and the last one looked great, and in between it sort of lost its way. The last ones looked amazing. If you'd have put like a really posh brand name on those last Mondeos, you could have got away with it, couldn't you?
Yeah.
They look great.
Favourite saloon car of the 90s then?
Favourite saloon car of the 90s?
Saloon of the 90s, yeah.
Citroën XM. Yeah, we're going to have an XM. I love my XM. Well, I've had...
That's a hatchback. But then...
There was an estate. The estate wasn't nearly as good looking as the saloon. The saloon looked like a dart. I've got a great photo that when we do an XM, we'll put the photo up. And it's of me going around a race circuit in my XM at full, as fast as I dared. And as somebody had pointed out to me, and I didn't do it for effect, I was just doing it. They said, you're smoking a pipe in that picture. I said, yeah.
1991 they came, right?
Going around a race circuit in an XM, smoking me peep, as my granddad would have said. Smoking peep. I was smoking it, and somebody said, do you want to go out and do a few laps? I went, yeah, go on then. Love that car.
That's your favourite 90s saloon car?
Have you seen the film Ronin?
Yeah.
Paul Rover man.
Yeah.
Paul Ronin man. If Paul took to like robbing banks and killing people, he could turn from being Paul Rover man to Paul Ronin man, couldn't he?
Yeah, could.
Shall we do that?
Oh, that's gonna.
We could be like Robert De Niro and who was his sort of partner in crime? That French fella, Jean Reno. He was in that, wasn't he? The big lad, the one who isn't Gerard Depardieu. There are two big French actors, Gerard Depardieu, after whom I named my Renault Espace, my Grand Espace, with its 3.2 litre V6, on account of the fact that it was big French. It randomly broke down and leaked fluids all over the place. Remember when he took a pee in the aeroplane and they said, you can't go to the toilet? You went, go on then.
I thought that was a CX, wasn't it?
The CX?
Yeah.
What's he talking about? He's talking about 80s cars, 70s cars, the CX.
Yeah, but that's the car that you're talking about now.
I'm talking about the Citroën XM, not the Citroën CX.
All right.
The CX was the one that Grace Jones drove out of her own head in that advert.
Yeah.
An advert directed by Jean-Paul Goude, who was a boyfriend at the time, and who's been ridiculously ripped off. Do you remember those videos he did for New Order, Jean-Paul Goude? Don't they look like that Jaguar advert, those New Order videos? Yeah, they do, don't they? Total rip-off. Anyway, our back wall looks like that Jaguar advert. Do you not think? Anyway.
Mine was the Honda Accord.
The Honda Accord? Was
which was actually quite
absolutely
a plain-looking car.
Fantastic car. I did a lot of miles in a Honda Accord estate, which had previously been the property of...
Me?
Let's see if you can guess.
Yeah, I don't have it.
Somebody famous off the telly.
No, me didn't.
Who's not me? Because they were famous, not me. Somebody famous off the telly. Go on, have a guess, Paul. Let's see if you
drive a car.
Let's see if you can get to the previous owner of this Honda Accord estate that I did a lot of miles in.
Somebody famous off the television.
Yeah.
David Dickinson.
Wrong gender. Try again.
Oh, Sarah Millican.
Wrong area of being famous on the telly. Try again. Not a comedian.
Princess Anne.
He's not playing the game where you narrow it down. Sarah Millican's a comedian. I've told him it's not a comedian. You might ask a question as to whether this person is on the news, is a news presenter. So I'd say factional or fictional. That would be the question that I'd ask. Try again, Paul.
No, isn't it?
Try again, Paul.
Was she a newsreader?
No, factional or fictional,
Factional
mate.
or fictional.
That divides it into people who present documentaries, news programmes, or a whole tranche of TV programming, versus people who are on dramas and perhaps a soap opera, Paul. Perhaps someone who was on a soap opera. Now, where might that soap opera be based, bearing in mind that I ended up sitting in that car?
Okay, it was somebody off Coronation Street.
Coronation Street, well done.
Right, so there's quite a lot of ladies on there.
Quite a lot of ladies.
Yeah.
So what would you do? What I would say is older generation Coronation Street or younger generation Coronation Street?
Okay, older or younger?
Older.
Okay.
Older.
I'm going to run out of names, I know.
Really?
Yeah, because I don't know any of the names. Oh, hang on.
He's thinking.
I am thinking. I can't remember her name. Julie Goodyear.
Julie Goodyear. That's her real name. A.K.A. Bet Lynch.
Yeah.
A resident of Haywood. A pal I know went out with her briefly. He had some stories to tell. I'm not going to retell them right now. It's not Julie Goodyear.
Okay.
Has she passed yet?
I don't think so.
Not that I wish her to, but no. Okay. I thought she was on her last leg.
Right, well, of that kind of that vintage then.
Of that vintage.
Right.
Good question.
Okay.
Yes, Paul, of that
Okay,
vintage.
the lady who plays Rita Fairclough or whatever she.
Barbara Knox.
That's it. That's her. Yeah. No. Oh, was this? I've got one guess left.
And so we might say when you were playing dominoes, you're knocking, Paul, with Barbara Knox. You're knocking.
Knocking.
In other words, you don't get to play.
Yes, you're knocking shot.
Try again. Not, how dare you? Not Barbara Knox. Try again.
I don't know of any others.
Oh, dear God. Vera Duckworth.
Ah, what? She had a Honda Accord estate.
A.K.A. Liz.
Yeah. Is she still alive?
Sadly, no.
No,
Please,
I think so.
and she was known to me, so please don't say anything mean about Liz.
I wasn't good.
And she was an absolutely lovely person. She really was. And she had her husband, Don, had a Honda Accord estate, and it got passed down to me and my buddy, who used it to go around filming stuff. So, I did a lot of miles in a Honda Accord estate from the 90s. And do you know what it was? Absolutely brilliant. People go on about Toyotas, don't they? Oh, Toyotas from that period. Oh, they're indestructible. Oh, they're bulletproof. Oh, they run on nothing. They don't need any maintenance. try a Honda Accord from the 90s.
Nicer put together.
Absolutely phenomenal.
Nicer buttons.
Yeah, they're a bit of a cut above, but I've said it a million times, haven't I? Honda engineering, to me, that's the greatest engineering in the automotive world. People might say Mercedes, people might say, and I'll say it again, Toyota. But I would argue from my experience of bikes and working on motorbikes and taking them apart and putting them back together again, or trying to build a custom version of something, just looking at the engineering that goes into Honda product. I don't know if it's the same now, it might be different, but I'm talking about the 90s. I'm talking about CBR 600s, Honda Fireblades, Firestorms, NSX, Honda Prelude. Honda Prelude, Paul, come on, which generation though?
Well, I had a Generation 5, and that was a wonderfully made car.
I liked...
It was the 2.2 VTI.
Was it the Sharky looking one?
No, but the last one, the one
Hold
with
on.
the slightly odd looking headlamps. So yeah, you could... the Generation 5 went back to what it looked like on the 2 and 3.
Right.
Because the one in between the 4...
The one was
really
a
popular
radical looking car, wasn't it? It looked odd.
The one?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. And then what came after that really didn't follow the design at all.
Which one had four-wheel steering? Was that the 3?
It was the 3, 4 and 5.
Four-wheel steering.
And there might have
Didn't
even
really
been
work,
the 2
did it?
as well, comes to think of it, but I'm not sure.
That's like two-wheel drive on motorbikes. You think, surely a two-wheel drive motorbike would be the ultimate off-road machine. And they built them, and it's not. You can get, I think it's called a Rock-On, or a Roxon, two-wheel drive motorbike, but its top speed's like 25 mile an hour. It's for going over extremely difficult terrain, not like where you'd normally go.
Well, because the extra drive's taking the power away.
Adds weight, of course. And four-wheel steer, I drove a four-wheel steer Willis Jeep. The last one in existence, I think they built 3. 2 were destroyed in testing. There was one left. A man from Birmingham bought it for an enormous amount of money. Absolutely huge. I mean, you could have bought 2 Ferraris, allegedly, for what this guy paid for this ratty old Jeep, but it was four-wheel steer. And it could turn, Paul, it could turn in its own length.
Yeah, I know.
It could just whiz round.
We talked about this in one of the videos.
Well, they thought, not everybody's watched all of our videos. You've watched all of them, haven't you, you saddos?
I have.
So have I.
But the Honda...
Because I love the sound of my own voice, as you guessed. No, here's the thing. That four-wheel steer Jeep, you'd think, in a battlefield situation, that'd be invaluable, wouldn't it, Paul? Being able to turn around in your own length. Why didn't they make the Jeeps four-wheel steer, all the Willis Jeeps? Why didn't they make them all four-wheel steer?
Well, I know why, because you told me.
I told him.
Yeah.
Tell the people, Paul.
Because it would have been too complicated for the people in the field having to fix them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Anyone who's been in military transportation, what's the face, will know that back in the day, not now maybe, I don't know, back in the day, things were made as simple as possible. Because it's all very well if you can turn around in your own length to get away from the enemy. However, if your vehicle has failed to progress because of a small mechanical issue, which you are unable to resolve because you lack the skill, then you're screwed. So they deliberately made everything as simple as possible so that the lads who were often had no mechanical skills, but they could see that something needed shoving back on or something was broken, it could be perhaps strapped together. Simple, 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 simple. So that it just keeps going. And they thought that the added complexity of four-wheel steer made it too difficult for untrained mechanics.
But the passive four-wheel steer on the Honda wasn't about... Well, it was about having tightening up the turning circle. And I know because...
Did Mitsubishi also have four-wheel steer at the time?
Yeah, on the GTO.
Yeah.
But it made... when it stopped working once... Yeah, I'll do another one. When it stopped working once, suddenly it felt awful to turn. But it was about to park, though, to reverse park a car that has the rear wheels turning, meant it always ended up sticking out. So you had to learn how to reverse park it.
Can you reverse with a caravan or a trailer on?
A bit.
It's tricky, isn't it?
Well, it is tricky, yeah. But what's...
The millennials, I bet they can't do it. Reverse with the trailer on.
What's interesting is that the longer the trailer, the easier it is.
Yeah, American. My mate, who's a wagon driver, can put his wagon. I am more blown away by his ability to park his wagon. He puts videos of himself up parking his wagon, and it's mind-blowing. He's just dead good at reversing his wagon. And that's the sort of thing that impresses us. Like, he pulls into these loading bays for supermarkets or wherever where he's got delivery, and you think, it's never going in there. Straight in. I reckon he's got loads of... Right, if you're watching this, you know you are as well, mate. I reckon you've got a ton of electronic gear on that wagon of yours, and it's going... Do, 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 and showing you all the stuff. But he's just like, watch me mad skills here. Like that. And then it goes. No, seriously, mate, I am super duper impressed. But you do ride too fast on the road, and you want to watch it. He's got a new bike as well. Watch yourself on that new bike. Very quick.
It's getting cold, isn't it?
None of us. It's getting cold in here. What about all the hot air that's being expended, Paul?
Well, it's not warming up the lockup, is it?
No.
You're fighting a losing battle against the cold.
I drove here today in an MGF with the top down. Yeah, people were looking at me.
Why?
Because they think I'm a madman. Because it's freezing. But
no, it's not because of that. Because you're driving down the M62 with the roof down, going, "It's Steve Berry from Berry here."
I'm not.
You were.
I will always drive a convertible car with the roof down. It's possible, because I think of what my granddad would think if I had the roof up. He'd think I was a ponce. That's what he'd think. Both of them, John Berry and John Moore, would both think ponce. Perfumed ponce. That's what they'd think. Because they were proper men. And in a world that's increasingly not designed for men like them, I try and be a bit like them. I think we all need like fresh air and a bit of the old sunlight on our skin, don't we? I mean, look at me. Look at me.
It's Les Battersby.
It's Bob Mortimer. It's if Les Battersby and Bob Mortimer had a love child. No, I just think any chance, and like as a motorcyclist, motorcyclists will know this, because you'll be having a conversation with non-motorcyclists and they'll be going, cold, innit? And you think, not really. I mean, right, I'll tell you a quick anecdote. I bought a Ducati. First mention of Ducati.
Yeah.
Are you making me a tea or what?
It's there.
I bought a Ducati from a bloke in Burbank, California. I was in the Burbank IKEA with my missus, and she was shopping. So I'd been dispatched to the cafe, which is how we do the IKEA thing. We go to IKEA in the same vehicle. I do not go into the store. I go to the cafe with an iPad and look at stuff that I don't want or need on eBay and Marketplace and all that sort of stuff. So I'm looking on Marketplace and there's a Ducati and I'm thinking, I like that. That is a model that we didn't get in the UK. It was a monster. People know that's a sort of traditionally styled motorbike, sit up and beg job like that. Not an adventure bike, not a super sports bike, a traditional, like your granddad had, motorbike, brilliant design, the monster. But it had the multi-strada engine, which we didn't get in the UK. So it was a non-UK model. I thought, I like that. It's got the bigger engine. I like the old styling. It had some nice bits on it. Tasteful, carbon fibre. I thought, I like that. It's a bit expensive. I lowball him. You know what they do? They talk about it, the Americans, don't they? The lowballing. People take offence to the lowballing. I lowballed him. I offered him half what he was asking. Do you know what he did, Paul?
He said no.
Told me to F off.
What, F-U-P?
I went, yeah. I thought,
Fop off.
don't need to be like that, mate.
What is it with these choppers then? Right? So I've never ridden one of these where you got the bars up there. I think that must be uncomfortable. After a while, it must really make your arms ache.
He's asking me about motorbikes.
Yeah, I'm asking you about them.
Would you like me to give you an extended dissertation upon the construction and styling of motorcycle choppers as they evolved from bobbers and other forms of custom motorcycles, particularly here in the UK, where we built cafe racers, and how the styling of both the cafe racer and the chopper reflected an iconoclastic anti-establishment way of building a bike.
What, so it's...
Yeah, a chopper with big apes, ape-hanger handlebars, and a suicide shift, i.e. a hand shift, where you're barely controlling the thing with your arms up here, and to shift gears, you've got to take one hand, depending on which side it's on, you've got to take one hand off the bars, which is why it's called a suicide shift, because it's like committing suicide. You're barely in control of the damn thing. Then you've got maybe forwards on it as well, forward controls. You've ditched the front brake. You've got rid of that for style reasons. And you're thinking, doesn't that make it harder to ride? Yes. Yes, it makes it harder to ride.
I didn't know they ditched the front brake.
Yes.
Wow.
It makes it harder to ride. Because you're saying, see me? I'm cool and hard and deadly. Look at me. One hand on the stupid handlebars. One hand on the gear shift. Crash helmet? No, mate. No crash helmet. Leather jacket. See, here's the thing they get wrong about, like, biker gangs. Leather jackets. If you look back, say you get, like, Danny Lyon's book, The Bike Riders, upon which the recent film, which was a bit of a flop on account, it didn't get publicised, and it was okay, it wasn't great. Austin Butler and Jodie Comer and Tom Hardy. Greatest British, apart from Serene, of course. Serene and Tom Hardy, they're like there for me in terms of film actors. Not his finest hour, The Bike Riders, but the book, The Bike Riders, Danny Lyon's photo essay. Yes, a photo essay, Paul. Motorcycle sound effect in the background.
TVR.
Was it? They put motorbike exhausts on TVRs. Do you know that? No, they did. Anyway.
Anyway, yeah.
They didn't wear leather jackets because they thought the original bikers were like beatniks. They were like sort of pot smoking. They're like jazz. If you look at those early like bike movies, when they go off to have a party in the woods and have a bit of tea, as they called it, oh yeah, the wacky backy, they're playing the bongos and wearing those little beatniks, man. They wore like Chino, Lee Marvin's character. They wore like jumpers, groovy jumpers and like denim, whatever. They thought that wearing a leather jacket was a bit straight. It was a bit like what the American Motorcycle Organization, the AMA, that's what they would have done. Because motorcycling was really conservative. People don't realise a Harley Davidson back in the day the owning a Harley Davidson was like playing golf. It was like a middle class thing. And there were these guys called the Shriners. So was your dad in like, sorry, I'm getting a bit personal here. My dad was an odd fellow. Was you, well, still is. Explains a lot, doesn't it? Was your dad in like one of those organisations like that?
No.
Well, my dad was. And it was like people are grouped together, like the Freemasons or the Oddfellas or the Rotary Club. The Rotary Club. Rotarians. They do good works and raise money for charity. And in the States, it was linked to motorcycling. So when they had like a parade, there'd be all these guys. You can look at this. This is from sort of the 20s, right up to the 60s, 70s, even into the 80s. These guys riding along on Harley Davidsons, wearing fezzes. You know, like Tommy Cooper?
Yeah.
Or an Egyptian person. Oh no, Moroccan in it, a fez. Yeah. Hold on, I've been to Fez.
Algeria?
No, hold on, no. Paul, I've been to Fez.
Okay.
It's a city in Morocco. And I'm going, is it Egyptian? No, you know that place you went to in Morocco, Fez, that city? Yeah, that's where Fezzes come from. Right, anyway. So, not Bez, he's from Little Alton. Mark Berry. Anyway. So, when the bikers, the Hells Angels, the Outlaws, what the AMA called the 1%, because people said, these bikers are terrible. And the American Motorcycle Association, the AMA, said, It's only a few people. It's like 1% of all the motorcyclists there are that are giving everybody else a bad name. So that's why they started calling themselves 1%ers, and they have a patch, 1%. We're the 1% that are spoiling it for everybody else. So when they took Harleys and they chopped them and put apes on them and wacky exhausts and stuff like that, they were doing what the punks did. Yeah, look at this. I'm like a proper journalist. They were doing what the punks did in the 70s when they started wearing swastikas and stuff like that. They weren't wearing swastikas because they were like keen on the policies of Adolf Hitler and the National Socialist Party in Germany between 1933 and 1945. Do you remember when you went to the States and they asked you that question on a form? You had to fill in that green form and it said, were you a member of the National Socialist Party in Germany between 1933 and 1945? Yes or no? And I thought, I wonder what Werner von Braun did when he got that form. When he was going to America to head up the space program. And he went, here, fill this form in, Werner. There's this question here. There is a question. I was a prominent member of the Nazi Party. Never mind that. Never mind. No, never mind that, Vernon. Just do your equations. Yeah. Anyway.
Well,
that's what they were doing. They were saying to the older generation, we're taking something that you find shocking and disturbing. We're taking a symbol, and to Americans, a symbol of middle-class respectability was a Harley-Davidson motorcycle. Do you know how expensive they were? They were super duper expensive, Harleys, at that time. So the only people that could afford them were like bank managers and, you know, professional people. And they used to ride round in like matching, they used to wear like funny caps and matching outfits and all that sort of stuff. So when these lads that were coming back from the war and didn't want to settle back into like conventional, normal, go to work Monday to Friday, have 2.4 children, live in a semi-detached house, mow your lawn, polish your Chevrolet on a Sunday, they didn't want to do that. They took Harley Davidsons because they were cheap. There were cheap ones available after the war because they were all wartime bikes, the old WLA and WLC with a flathead 750 motor. They took them and they bobbed them. They didn't chop them, they bobbed them. So, you know, like a bobbed haircut on a lady, or perhaps a gentleman. Perhaps Paul would look good with a bobbed haircut.
Oh, we'll find out later.
What do you think? Perhaps I'd look good with a bobbed haircut.
Well, we could try it with one of your wigs.
I've got a new wig, by the way, Paul. I bought a new wig this week. Yeah, it's a curly one. I think I'll look like Jenny Powell from the 90s. I used to see Jenny Powell in the chip shop in Hale. God, she was so beautiful. Oh, my God. I fancied her. Who was the fittest like bird like that in the 90s? Don't say Michaela Strachan, because I used to know her.
Anna Friel.
Michaela Strachan. Anna Friel. I saw Anna Friel in a pub near here with that Reese Farnes fella. We've talked about that on Big in the 90s, haven't we?
Yeah, we have. I need a pee. Do you reckon you'd be all right to hold the fort for a bit?
Just
do it here.
Just go like that.
We've been going for 1 hour and 53 minutes and you've barely stopped.
Well, perhaps we should just stop.
Yeah.
I have no idea how these things work. I come from a world of proper television where we used to take 2 days and 5 people to make 5 minutes of content. And
I
now,
think what we'll do, let's take it to 2 hours. Nice round 2 hours. And then
so can you hold it till then?
Yeah, I might as well. Why, do you want to go and do one?
No, I'm fine.
Oh, yeah.
Anna Friel. She had the lesbian kiss, didn't she?
She did, yeah.
I've got a Brookside story. Shall I tell you my Brookside story?
You could do.
I've got 2 Brookside stories.
Don't tell them both.
Okay. Which
tell the
one?
90s one. They're both going to be 90s.
They're both 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah, Brookside was on in the 90s and it's not on now, so they're both 90s. Shall I tell you about the one where I went to get a motorbike that was meant to be on Brookside for my mate?
Yeah.
Right, so, if you remember on Brookside...
I don't.
Brookside was... I don't know.
I didn't like it.
You didn't like it?
No.
It was a bit more... It was a bit grittier than Corrie and EastEnders, wasn't it? I
don't like EastEnders.
Is that mad?
Yeah.
I didn't ask you whether you liked it. Because it was Phil Redman. He's Sir Phil Redman now, isn't he? The guy that did Brookside. He came from that theatre in Liverpool. Is it the Everyman in Liverpool?
Oh.
Where they were all Marxists, basically. Not wrong being a Marxist. If you want to be a Marxist, be a Marxist.
Be a Marxist.
But they were all massive lefties. So in Brookside was a lot more right on than the other soaps.
Right on.
It was like, yeah, you know, like Rick off the Young Ones. It was like that, Brookside. But they decided that one of the characters was going to be a biker. So they rang round all the motorbike companies, as telly people do, and said, can we have a free blah blah and it'll be on the telly? Now, of course, you all know that happens. And in a world of influencers, me and Paul are influencers, aren't we? Are we influencers, Paul?
No, I don't think so.
Do you think we could get free tea? Okay, free tea and free flat caps.
Well,
Yorkshire tea. When Paul and me want a cup of tea, because there's no such thing as Lancashire tea, why isn't there Lancashire tea?
there is.
There is Lancashire tea. Then why are we drinking this muck? What's going on? He's just told me there's Lancashire tea and we're drinking this. From over there?
Yeah.
Why?
Tetley's Lancashire, isn't it?
Anyway, I was telling him. See, as happens when we're doing proper big in the 90s, Paul's butted in halfway through one of my fascinating anecdotes.
Get used to it. It's going to carry on.
And he's ruined my floor. We're a bit like Chakademus and Players if they were from Rochdale, aren't we? Yeah,
the bike that they wanted for Brookside.
Very good, Paul. Thank you. So they'd rung round all the motorbike importers and manufacturers in the UK and said, can we have a free motorbike? It'd be on the telly. Yamaha had said yes. Right? So they'd sent them a GTS1000. Do you remember the GTS1000, Paul?
No.
No, of course he doesn't. The GTS1000 with its Omega frame and its hub centre steered front end was revolutionary. Because look at a motorbike. At the back, a swinging arm and shock absorbers or a shock absorber. The wheel moves, the shock absorber rebounds the wasp face.
What's your face?
And the wheel maintains contact with the ground. As opposed to a hardtail, we just have a diamond frame like this, no suspension, and they put some springs in the seat, but it wouldn't help the rear wheel to stay in contact with the ground when you went over a bumpy bit. And I've ridden a lot of those old bikes, and if you get out of shape, and I know this from personal experience, if you get out of shape on the TT course at 70 mile an hour on a TT winning Sunbeam racing motorbike that hasn't got any rear suspension, bad things happen. Ask me how I know.
Did you fall off?
No, weirdly, I didn't fall off.
Did you nearly fall off?
Yeah, I was on the grass. I was on grass. Right, and as you'll know, do you know about the TT?
I know. Well, yeah.
Well, it's not an off-road event, is it?
No, it's not.
So the last thing you want, I wasn't in the TT. I was riding 1928 Sunbeam. It had won the TT in 1928. I ended up on the grass. No rear suspension. Thing was, anyway. At the front of a motorbike, forks. Telescopic forks. Designed by and invented by...
Me.
Telescopic forks. Designed and invented by...
Me.
Stop saying me. BMW. Idiot. Can't work with him. Anyway, by BMW. Which is weird. Because which motorbike company is the one that uses not telescopic forks? I would have got a board rubber thrown at me for that.
BMW?
Yeah, BMW. BMW have got a way of sort of separating the forces of braking and steering on a motorbike.
Oh, what happened then?
Don't know.
Just kind of flashed off, didn't it?
We flashed off. Whereas everybody else uses them. But there's a problem there. Stiction.
Stiction?
Yeah. You know what stiction is, don't you?
I could pretend that I know it.
It plagues telescopic forks because they have to steer the motorbike and they have to suspend the motorbike, and they have to cope with the braking that transfers all of the weight of the motorbike onto them. So, do that again. They're a terrible idea. It's a really bad invention. But in the 70, 80 years that they've been around, they've kind of been made to work. But Yamaha in the 90s thought, sod this, and they put effectively a back end on the front end. Hub centre steering. Single-sided onto the front wheel. So, like the back, but on the front. And you separate the forces that are impinging upon that front wheel caused by stopping or steering. You separate it all, and it just makes it better. So they'd sent them one of them, because guess what? Nobody bought them. Because motorcyclists are idiots. And if they, well, we are. If they change anything, we all go, oh, 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 what have you done? You've changed something. Oh. I mean, look at a motorbike. I wrote a piece about a fantastic Ducati from a few years ago and said, so essentially we've got a tubular steel frame. We've got, at the time, we've got an air and oil cooled engine. We've got telescopic foot. In other words, I was saying, in 100 years, motorcycles have hardly changed. They've changed quite a bit in the last sort of 20 years because of like loads of electronics and stuff like that. But anyway, nobody wanted these hub centre steered Yamahas. They were expensive and they were big and they had a weird steering thing and people just ran away from them crying and putting their hands up. I don't want it. I don't want the world to change. I want everything to stay the same forever. So Yamaha sent it to Brookside. But it hadn't been on for a year. So my pal, I was talking to at Yamaha, he went, you live up north, don't you, Steve? I went, yeah, unlike most people like me who made a bit of money, I haven't moved down to the southeast of England, I've stayed up north. And he said, you idiot, if you'd moved to London when you started making money and bought a property, you'd be quids in now. I said, yeah, I know. That conversation didn't happen, but I did have it with other people who did what I didn't do and moved to London and then sold their house for like 8 million quid or what, I don't. My mate sold his normal house for like £750,000 and bought a farm.
I'm gonna have to go.
Right, we're done. That's it. Turn it off.
Well, actually, I'm not going to go for a week. But actually, yeah,
we are 2 hours.
2 hours.
2 hours is up.
Right.
Do you know what? It's gone so quick. It's only seemed like 120 minutes.
It has, yeah. Well, thank you very, very
Sorry
much.
we couldn't do a video because of Storm Bert,
Yeah.
but we'll have we're doing a load of cars this week. When I say doing, we're filming because we've realised we should really have a spare video to send you in case there's like an insane storm that kills people and ruins their houses and
or something like that.
makes it impossible to film.
But thank you very, very, very much for joining us on this live stream. And if you liked it, we may be encouraged to do it again.
God, I hope not. I've hated it. I couldn't get a bloody word in edgeways. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Wow.